I'm Kobe Simon, I'm the CEO here at Best Practice. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar today, and thank you for contributing your amazing time to us so that I can share this content with you. So we're going to talk through ISO 9001-2015 today and some focus points. We've got, I guess, the consolidation of some information around trends analysis across about 1,000 companies, and we won't go into too much of that data, but I'll share some focus points. So there's some very quick slides that we'll run over as part of this presentation. So I head up Best Practice here. I've got our Training Academy team here with me today who have put this together and sent out all the emails and the regos and all those sorts of things. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you lose a connection, we're running a high-speed upload connection here at Best Practice. So if you lose your connection, don't panic. This recording will sit in the YouTube channel. So down here, there's a link to YouTube. You can hop across to the Best Practice TV YouTube channel by clicking this link. If you're in our training portal, or if you're on YouTube, you're already there, obviously. There's a place to post comments. So if you lose your connection, you go back to the YouTube channel, and you can pick up where we will get ahead of you. Obviously, you'll be delayed, but you'll still see the presentation live. Please go ahead and post comments. I've got Shelley here on my right reading the comments and moderating what's happening here for me, and I've got Alexi here behind the camera shooting for Best Practice TV. So we're trying to capture this. So there's a couple of requests I have. One is that if you're hoping that someone else could see this presentation, there'll be a link available on our YouTube channel that you can share it with them after the presentation, and we'll move right along. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm just going to share my desktop for you, and I've got some slides for you. So we'll just move across over there, and let's just click the present to everyone button and click present. Over here, here we go, present. Okay, thumbs up from everybody. You've got slides. Okay, so obviously I'm Kobe Simon, and thank you very much for your time, and thanks for joining us. And what I'm going to take you through today is a little bit of an insight into a refocus of ISO 9001 here in the 2015 edition of the standard. It's definitely top tips and tricks. We're not going to go in detail because we haven't got enough time, clause by clause through the standard. But what we are going to do, I'm going to give you 2 clauses of the standard that I think are the starting point to look at the new standard and where the biggest changes have been, in my view, and then we can go from there. So by all means, as we go through the presentation, if you have any specific comments, go right ahead and comment in the comments section if you're viewing this on YouTube, and I'll cover those for you. I'll cover all the questions. So it may be just a case of hanging around, or I'll type a response as we leave. So just a quick little welcome, a little bit about Best Practice certification and Best Practice. There's 2 parts to this business. There's a training academy, which this falls under, and there's also a certification business. And probably what's the most important thing to communicate with everybody out there is that the 2 parts of the business really are focused on helping businesses grow and improve, and that's what we're really inspired and motivated to do here at Best Practice, and that's what the team's all about. And then within those organisations and within those businesses, we're all about helping the people grow. So the Training Academy is all about helping people, and then obviously the certification business is about focusing on business improvement, and we happen to do best practice assessments and ISO certifications in that space to make that happen. So Best Practice Training Academy has just been launched. We have been up until now running in more of a live, bums on seats, face-to-face type environment, and we've just done a huge relaunch of all of our training courses across in our online training academy. And that's, you've obviously registered for this webinar through that training academy. Have a browse around. We've got about 50 courses in production at the moment. There's obviously some that are live, and I'd encourage you to have a look at that. It's an opt-in. It's totally up to you. It's just about making you guys aware that web store exists. So today's session is sponsored by the Best Practice Training Academy, and there's a special webinar training offer that we've made available to you guys, and that's something that we'll cover at the end of the webinar. There's a special discount on an ISO 9001-2015 basics course, and we go clause by clause through the standard in video format, and it's definitely something that I encourage you all to have a look at, and it's coupled up as a discounted offer with our internal auditor training. So if you have a quality management system, or you're developing a quality management system and participating in this webinar a way of finding out a bit more about the standard, definitely have a look at that bundle deal. It's about a 65% discount, which is absolutely excellent. This is the end of the sales pitch, which is it's just getting you guys to understand that our training academy funds all of this free content that we put out. So let's just talk about that content. We're posting on Facebook, we're posting on YouTube, we're posting on Instagram, and we're posting on LinkedIn more than once a week. So in different platforms, depending on the social media platform that you like to consume your content, there's tons of stuff coming out. Last week we put out 12 videos on our YouTube channel. So if you jump across and have a look at the YouTube channel, there's a masterclass where in very much this format, we've gone through ISO 9001 in 10 videos. And I'd encourage you to look at that. There's no sales pitch in that stuff. It's just our commentary around what we think is a good thing to focus on and how to move through the new edition of the standard. The other thing that I'd request, so that you do get some of this content, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and that's my handle there, @KobeSimmer. And obviously Best Practice TV is what you can search. There's a hashtag there that we use across all those platforms, keep improving every day. We do a little bit on Twitter if you're a Twitter user, but it's at this stage, we're just trying to keep up with the workload with the other platforms, and we'll get around to Twitter in the future, I guarantee it. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're obviously live on Facebook, and go right ahead. If you want to see me, Shelley will put up a few posts, but let's just talk about the slides. So getting right into ISO 9001, it is something that I think it's important for us in this discussion and in this webinar to go back to first principles and understand that we can have a real good look back into customer satisfaction. You guys okay? Everything under control? Perfect. So what we're talking there is about, well, why is ISO 9001, why does it physically exist? And its primary focus is on managing customer satisfaction. And we'll talk about it as we go through this presentation, what my view is, but it's really going back to first principles. I think quality management systems have gone too far to thousands of documents and critical processes and bureaucracy and sign-offs and checklists and all those sorts of things, and they've completely forgotten the fact that it's meant to be customer-centric, and the true intent of the standard is it's customer centricity and thinking about what can you do to enhance the customer's experience, what can you do to enhance the customer's experience, and what can you do to prevent a negative experience with your customers. And I think that if you can take that away from this webinar and process that within your organisation, then you're following the true intent of ISO 9001. Definitely the new standard, ISO 9001, can be used to manage other risk areas in the business. It's taken now a very clear, crystallised, risk-based approach to the standard, and we will talk about that, and I'll talk about where in parts of the standard that's been adjusted. And it's identifying and managing customer expectations. It's been, it has been there in the standard up until 2015. But it's been implicit, so it hasn't been specifically stated. And I think, up until 2015, we've maybe not had a real good focus. We've sort of lost our way. Certainly the 1994 edition of the standard required 18 procedures to be written, and they had absolutely nothing to do with the customers and running your business. In the 2000 edition of the standard, it became a little bit less prescriptive. 2008, even less so. So we're talking about 6 mandatory procedures, and now we haven't got, or it's become more silent, not totally silent, but more silent on the need to write thousands of documents. Let's be real, no one reads them anyway. So I think from a quality management industry perspective, globally, we've realised that it didn't go well. And so this edition of 9001, I think is the most exciting, and I'm obviously quite passionate about it. For those of you out there, I know there's a few of you that know me quite well on the registration list there watching this webinar. You know that I'm passionate about this, and so let's look at what I'm passionate about. I've got a couple of slides here for you. Every day I hear thousands of complaints, and as weeks and months and years go by, we start to hear common complaints and similar complaints. We do our bit here at Best Practice to try and build our business and structure our services to get on the front foot to prevent those things happening. That'd be our quality management system in action. But what we often hear is that we've got thousands of policies and procedures that we have to keep updating, and it costs a fortune. It's really, really expensive toner on white paper. And yes, we hear you, and I think globally the industry's heard you and has adjusted, because I think that if you could take my opinion now is, what are your staff, or what are the team members of your organisations, what do they do when they leave work? How do they consume content? And for the vast majority of certainly the Australian culture, it's go home and turn on the television. So that signals to me that maybe that's the way that people like consuming content. And so then we bring that into business. Can we do it in this fashion? Now, obviously, this webinar, I'm showing you a slide, but certainly what we're trying to do in our YouTube channel and on Facebook is be sharing more information with you that is lifting your level of knowledge and lifting your skills and competencies. So we're trying to embrace that because we found that we've got a much better level of interaction, and then we're also doing that internally with our staff training. Now, obviously, common complaint is that 9001 and certification, all those sorts of things, just a box ticking exercise. We've all heard that. And I obviously hear it from all of you out in the community because I talk to all of you, and you might sort of hear that in isolation. It's a bit of a box ticking exercise, but it's certainly a common complaint. I hear a lot that ISO 9001 does nothing for our business. And it's like anything, it's you get out of it what you put into it. And we'll talk more about what my vision is, and I've got some focus points in this presentation to address that. The external auditors keep changing, and that's probably more associated with certification than it is with generally implementing ISO 9001. And I'll be very clear here, you can have a quality management system that meets the requirements of ISO 9001. It doesn't have to be certified to meet the requirement of ISO 9001. It's often your clients, your customers that are requiring you to get that external certification. So it's a government tender, or it's that structured customer procurement environment. And in the context of external auditors, we coach our team here to be very, very, skilled in learning a client's business very, very quickly and adapting, because they're ultimately looking at the business management and the quality management system, not necessarily the business. So they're giving you guidance on how to use your system, not guidance on how to run your business. So I think it's really important there that that's going to be the way of the future, is that people will shuffle around, and we try not to do it. But certainly that frustration that you guys have with having to re-educate a new auditor every time, if you have that, it's certainly a common complaint. I hear lots that no one reads our procedures, and I hear you, because no one reads ours either here at Best Practice. We're a company too, and that's definitely something that we hear. And in the new edition of the standard, that's why it's been removed. No one reads them anyway. It's very expensive toner on very expensive white paper that sits on a shelf, and we blow the dust off it. And even nowadays, when it's a paperless office, it sits in a server drive or a Dropbox folder. No one can find it anyway. So I think with this new edition of the standard, that's been heard globally. And the last complaint, which I think is the funniest one of all, is that ISO 9001 is a complete waste of time. And again, my point is that you get out of it what you put into it. And what I'm hoping to do with you guys in this webinar today is turn your focal direction, or your priority, or your first stepping stone around, to give you some places in the standard to go to. And I've got a hard copy of the standard here in front of me that I'll read from. But to give you some step-off points into your quality system, I think while you don't need to make major changes, and in fact you don't need to make very many at all, in terms of making major changes with your organisation to upgrade from 2008 to 2015 edition of the standard, if certification is something that you do, because there's definitely people out there that are not certified with us, I think it's really important to be thinking about what I would prefer that you focused on is improving your business every day. And we will help you to maintain certification, but that's what we're passionate about. That's what we want to do, and that's the outcome that we want to achieve. So we want to see with you, we want to look at the results together and see your business, your customers' experience improving every day, and that's our ultimate objective. We can use ISO 9001 to do that, and obviously some other things, but that's what we're motivated to do. So let's just go back to some first principles. And ISO 9001, it's obviously, there's the title for you, ISO 9001 2015 Quality Management Systems Requirements. And so when we go from page 4 and the preamble or the introduction in ISO 9001, and I'd encourage you to procure a copy of the standard, purchase a copy of the standard, or download one of the ISO 9001 checklists that are in our training portal that you logged into this webinar through. There's a couple of free checklists that you can download there. There's an ISO 9001 2015 checklist, so write that on your notes and do that straight after the webinar. Grab that checklist. It's free, and I think going back to that is that this is a prescriptive framework for building a business plan, if you like. And we had a discussion in the office just before starting this webinar that some of the newer members of our team here at Best Practice were saying, well, what's ISO 9001 taught you, or what do you know about it? And when you follow the standard, not in its entirety, because we're not looking for explicit compliance, but when you start to understand the framework, so how it sort of sits together in modules, it definitely does help you build a business plan. So quickly talking about some changes, I'm very conscious of time and I've got lots to talk about, is that ISO 9001 2015 has changed how it starts, and it talks about taking a risk-based approach to customer focus. And the most simplest thing I can talk to you there is understanding what you can do to upset a customer and what you can do to make a customer smile. And that's all of your customers. And yes, I appreciate, and I've looked at, I understand some of your organisations, and the customer relationship is very, very complex, particularly for some of the larger organisations that are represented in our audience today. I hear you that your customers' relationship is very, very complex, and I think it's very important to be thinking about each and every specific person who you're connecting with at a customer, particularly on some of the larger, more complicated projects that I know some of you do, and think about what's going to upset them. Now, put personality clashes aside, let's talk about things like service level agreements and those types of things, and what is the true intent that those things are trying to achieve, and what is it that they're asking for, and then do a risk assessment. And I'll get into that, likelihood consequences. But lately I've been using the term violated. So what is it that you could do, or your team, or the people involved in providing your service, that could make your customers feel violated? And I think that's a really good starting point. And I hope some of you are having a bit of a chuckle at my statements here, that it's definitely thinking about, okay, well, let's start there, because the last thing we want to do is make our clients and customers feel violated. So then my next question to you is, could that happen this afternoon? So while you guys are watching this webinar, could one of your team members or a member of your organisation out there in the world that they're doing business for your organisation, could they be upsetting or making a customer feel violated? And I can definitely say that if you were the Australian Bureau of Statistics recently putting out a small survey to the whole country, definitely a lot of people weren't happy. And I think that in that instance, probably the potential for that circumstance to eventuate was very, very real. The consequences very, very high. And so the appropriate controls, I don't believe, were put in place to prevent that incident occurring. And then certainly when it did occur, in that it was very, very likely, and it did actually come to fruition, there wasn't a disaster recovery plan in place with a really good PR strategy. So what are we going to do if we do actually upset our customers, and how are we going to recover from that? So it takes years and years and years to build up your amazing reputations, and then it can be all lost very, very quickly. 2015 edition of the standard is becoming more silent on writing lots and lots of documents. And I would certainly be the first person to say, if you've got stuff in your system that hasn't been used for a long period of time, delete it. And that's definitely something to consider in, is that paper-based thing that you use, that policy, that procedure, that text and writing that's on paper, is it really an effective way of guiding the people in your organisation to do the things that need to be done to satisfy customers? And what we've observed is that is certainly, certainly that they're not useful, they're not effective, and time again we're auditing and assessing organisations and seeing this stuff just not being used. And the telltale sign for us is that it all gets updated in the 3 or 4 days preceding an audit or an assessment, and we see that. We see that in the revision status of documents. We see it in the last date modified. you'll show us an electronic folder and we'll be seeing all of these documents all lined up, and we can see that stuff's getting updated. And look, I appreciate that you clean the house before the party, and we all do that. When we're going to have a party, we'll do a bit of a tidy up, and certainly when you're prepping for an audit, you'll do a bit of a tidy up, and you want a good result. But for us, it's an indicator that the system's really not the system, if that makes sense. And so, we're not going to hold you to account on that. We really want to look at, well, what are people using for guidance and instruction? And if you've watched some of our YouTube videos, which I would encourage that you do, I talk lots about making an amazing chocolate cake. And this is a really good analogy for everybody, because we all understand cooking, that, we want to make a great chocolate cake. Well, what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to go look for a recipe, and then we're going to think about, okay, well, what's the method going to be? And then we're going to get all the ingredients together on the kitchen bench, and then we're going to start to put them together and follow the methodology. And you know what? The first one's probably not going to be very good. So what the piece of guidance and advice I've got for you all here is, do you, when you produce a new policy or system or set of guidelines in the organisation, give your team time to practice and fail? And that might start to say, well, okay, well, maybe writing a procedure is not the way to go. Maybe releasing a new policy and expecting absolute compliance from day one is not the way to go. But how can we coach and motivate and inspire our team members as we go to get better and better levels of compliance over time? So it's just, I just want to provoke a few thoughts here, and I definitely want to discourage the use of lots of documents, unless, of course, your customers or your industry requires it, but don't do it for ISO 9001. So ISO 9001 is about giving your team guidance and support to deliver an amazing service to your customer. ISO 9001 is definitely not about writing everything down and expecting all your processes to be documented. A cool thing about ISO 9001, it's been realigned to be and follow the more successful format of the other management system standards that have been around for a little while. So now when you look at the new version of 9001 and also the older versions of 14001 and AS NZS 4801, the safety standard, you'll see that the standards now align. A piece of technical jargon that you'll hear out there in industry is a thing called Annex SL. And so ISO has issued an Annex SL, which is how the management system specifications are required to be formatted. And so now having an integrated management system is much easier, because you have a quality management system standard that follows the same numbering and the same sort of intent, clause by clause, as 14001. And you will see ISO 45001, which will be the new global OH&S, or workplace health and safety standard, come out at the end of this year. It's in draft. There's a few draft copies that you can find if you're a good Googler floating around the internet. And you'll see that that document. Ultimately, they're planning a release towards the end of this year or early next year, and it's not significantly different from 14001. So if you were to get the new version, 2015 version of 14001, if you were to get that document and exchange environment for workplace health and safety, you'd essentially have 45001, adding in a few little things like consultation and strengthening communication, but you can use that. So that'll give you a heads up on 45001. And if you would like me to run a webinar on either of those standards, which we plan to do anyway, or you'd like to participate, just reach out to us and let us know that you want to be notified when we put up those webinars. I'd probably suggest that we'll be doing 14001 in about 3 weeks' time. We'll broadcast 14001 webinar and follow this sort of format. Go ahead. Pardon? Okay, so we've just had a question. What are we talking about with 27001? Exactly the same system format. And yes, we'll also run a webinar on 27001. So that was a question that's just come in. Any other questions? Okay. My last point there on this slide is that I'm obviously very, very passionate about this, but in my view, this is the most exciting upgrade to ISO 9001 since 1994, and I've been working with quality management systems and the quality management specifications since 1994. That's when I helped put together my first quality management system. And I've been banging on for a very long time about how these things should be structured and how to take a good approach to the management of quality in a business. And it's good to see that someone else has had the same thoughts as I have. So we're seeing the reinforcement reinforcement of the self-evaluation and improvement cycle, which you see there on our slides. Just get rid of this. Get rid of that. No, I can't get rid of that. Okay. Is plan, do, check, and act. So with ultimately, you know, in the assessment industry that we work in, which is the bulk of our work here at Best Practice, we're ultimately certifying that in the quality space, we're ultimately certifying that you have a quality management system to look after your customers. That is your self-evaluation system. So if I use the example, you've got a bit of a training program or a fitness program, and you know, you go to the gym and you measure your performance and you get on the scales to see how your weight loss is going. It's very similar. So what we're looking for here, if you want some inside information on, you know, what we're coaching our team to look for when they're out doing assessments, we're looking that you're tracking your performance and you have a system in place to analyze how you're going, make a plan and set some objectives and targets to get better performance. And we recently did a couple of videos on our YouTube channel. There's a 3-part series there if you want to go back and have a look on the Olympics. And so I think it's important to sort of look at that. How do those peak performers get to that point? Well, they practice. They practice and check, and people analyze, and they get, you know, people involved to give them advice and guidance and try new training techniques. And that's definitely something that we are looking for here at Best Practice. We're moving away from, and in fact, you know, I discourage my team to be issuing things like document control non-conformances. We're moving away from those types of assessments. And we go, and this is also a presentation to give you a bit of an insight into where our focus points are with our team, is to be going and looking at, we want to see how you track your performance. We want to see, you know, what have you identified with regards to your customers, and what have you identified with regards to areas of your business that you could potentially improve, and then how are you tracking and mapping that? How are you communicating with your team? How are you letting your team digest and absorb that new information, and are you giving your team time for their competency and skills to grow and evolve, and are you giving them the opportunity to, you know, to practice and fail in a test environment before you go live with something, you know? And so that's based on a risk-based approach. Yes, you might let them go live with something that's quite simple, but if it's a significant area of change in the business, how do you nurture that change and digest that? Let your team digest the new information. And for those of you in the construction industry, it's like winning a tender and then starting the work on site the next day. You know, I've always been an advocate for enabling the project team to digest this project, because they haven't been involved in the tender. There's been a tender team that's maybe worked on that tender for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then all of a sudden the project team's ready to start and you do that handover. Do you schedule in your program some time for digestion? Because that's when big expensive mistakes can get made on big construction and infrastructure projects, is that concept of digestion and absorption of information. So I hope that's helping, and that's definitely what we're looking for as a more modern approach to this exercise. How are we going for time, guys? Good. Okay, so I've got our 5 top focus points here. And for those of you that have just come online and are starting to join us, down on the bottom of your screen there, you'll see a YouTube logo. If you're not already in YouTube, you can click on that and you can watch on YouTube, and you can post comments and questions on the side of your screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, watching this presentation. And also, don't forget you can do screenshots. So if you want this slide, or if you want these notes, you can go back and watch this presentation. But don't, you know, if you're sitting in front of your a desktop or a laptop, do a screenshot if you want to capture this content. Go right ahead. We will put the slides up in our training portal. We'll try and get that up this afternoon so that you can download it. There's also an ISO 9001 checklist there for you if you missed that. So the top 5 focus points, this is obviously, from a best practices perspective, this is our opinion, and this is the guidance we're giving you in terms of what we believe you should start with and focus on. And I did a bit of a survey, and we're probably a bit guilty here at Best Practice of maybe ignoring the standard as much as everybody else. But I'll ask you all a question. When was the last time you read ISO 9001, cover to cover? And certainly when I ask the question here in this business, we sort of just operate without maybe going to the level of detail that we need to. But I often find personally, my experience is when I do pick it up, I sort of ignore it, and there's definitely guilty parties in this particular room watching this presentation that maybe they don't sort of pay enough attention to the standard, because it is great and it's got some good stuff. A lot of effort's gone into it. So I'm going to start at page 4 and just take you through a couple of things, because going back to first principles here with this quality management system and the new revision of the standard, it's going to set you on the right stepping stone to go forward with some changes and maybe an adjustment of your management system, obviously to address 2015 so you can continue to be certified and transition to the new version of the standard. But more importantly, what we'd really love to see is your business improve and your customers have a more amazing experience. And so the very first 2 lines of the new standard under the introduction in section 0.1 general is this statement. I'll read it to you. The adoption of the quality management system is a strategic decision for an organisation that can help to improve its overall performance and provide a sound basis for sustainable development initiatives. And so from a trends analysis perspective, we see time and time again organisations choosing to implement a quality management system, and it's not a strategic decision. And so we see that organisation constantly challenged around engagement of senior management or top-level management at the board level, at the owner, at the shareholder level, right down through the management chain, because it's something that's come from left field, lower down in the organisation. We've got to do this to comply. And so I think what is really important is to truly embrace and receive the amazing benefits that this system structure has, is to start at that point. And if you want my help, I will offer it. Reach out to us, and if you want me to do a presentation, or if you want a link to a video to share with your team or your directors or the people that, the decision makers in your business, and you want our help, that's what our YouTube channel's for. That's what I'm here for at Best Practice, is to help you get that engagement at that level. And going back to this statement, the adoption of a quality management system is a strategic decision for an organisation that can help to improve its overall performance. And bringing this new edition of the standard right up there, and maybe opening this page and pushing it across the table in a management review, if you're running a quality management system already and you do management reviews, process in the next round, put this on the table and say, is this a strategic decision that we've made here in the business to do this, or are we just doing it because we've been told? And I can guarantee you that if this management system and quality management system is a challenge for you, we're not thinking at the right level. Now, the second part is, from a focal point, is that there's 7 quality management principles on page 7 there, which is section 0.2. And those 7 quality management principles point. We'll get to point 4 here on the slide, which talks about risk-based thinking. I would suggest, if you haven't done a quality risk assessment before, that you use this checklist as these principles as a way of a starting point in terms of thinking about, well, how do we do this risk-based thinking from a quality perspective? If you want my guidance on a piece of evidence to generate, if it's suitable for your business, and I put that disclaimer there, if it's suitable for your business, developing a risk register around the things that you can do to upset your customers is a good idea, and that could be a piece of evidence that you could show to prove that you've been through the thought process. So we're not interested in the spreadsheet and that it looks nice and it's got the right font and it's the right colours and it's the right text and the spelling's right and the full stops are in the right place. We're interested for the demonstration of the thought process. And so to encourage you to have a well-structured thought process, I'd recommend that you focus on these 7 quality management principles, and I'll read them to you. They are customer focus, leadership, engagement of people, process approach, improvement, evidence-based decision-making, and relationship management. And they form a good methodology to say, in the context of upsetting our customers, or in the context of enhancing the amazing, positive, uplifting experience that our customers can potentially have with our organisation, is how can they, how can we look at customer-based focus risks? We take our eye off the ball. We're focusing on, for those of you in the construction industry, build this thing, but we forgot that, we've got this client who's very nervous because we've completely ripped apart this beautiful asset that they have. Or it's an asset that's run down, or it's a greenfield development site. Those are the sorts of things, or they've got a very tight budget, and so they've given us all of their money that they're a government department. It's all the money they've been allocated for the next 12 months, and they've given us that to build their project. And so they get very, very nervous. And so there can be small things that happen that cause, obviously huge consequences. And it's starting to unpack and maybe identify some of those risks. And you know what? It's okay not to get, it's never going to be right. It's never going to be perfect. But we'd like to see people having a go rather than not, if that makes sense. And it's better to be untidy and a mess, and you can demonstrate the thought process than this perfectly formatted spreadsheet, if that makes sense, because it needs to be a living and breathing process in your organisation's risk-based approach. So using those headings, those 77 quality management principles, are there any potential leadership risks, any potential engagement of people risks, any potential process approach risks? And then we can start to look at opportunities for improvement, and then we can say, are we talking about an issue subjectively, or are we using facts? And certainly with a quality management system, you want to use facts. And I'll bring you to my most favourite topic in a couple of slides' time where we're talking about that. And so then obviously relationship management, and that's a very high-level statement, motherhood statement. In the context of this standard, it's talking about your suppliers and also your customers. And in some of the organisations that are participating in this webinar, I do know that your customers form part of your project teams and part of your service delivery. And while they sort of pay for your service, they do sort of hop in and help run your organisation because you sort of share the cost. And so it is important to sort of unpack what some of those risks might be in the ultimate service delivery, because we believe that, maybe if you want to steal some of my quotes or quote me, is that we're ultimately looking for the customer to have a positive, uplifting emotional experience. And from a focus point here, what can your organisation do to make your customer feel love, joy, or surprise? They're the three most powerful emotions on the emotion scale in terms of managing customers and customer expectations. So brainstorming exercise with your team to start to look at this and say, what can we do, or what do we do, and where we see our customers feel love, joy, and surprise. That positive, uplifting emotional experience that has your customer raving about your services, and then that word of mouth referral, winning more tenders. They just can't possibly procure anybody else because the experience with your organisation is just incredible. And that's, look, I know it's a stretch target, and I know it's pie in the sky, and I know some of you out there will be chuckling at these comments, but ultimately that's my vision, is to get you guys thinking in that particular direction. The third focus point there that I'd encourage you to be having a look at is that we want to revisit Plan, Do, Check, Act as a cycle. And so I would encourage you to be thinking about management review on a regular basis, not annually. I'd be encouraging you to think about things like internal audits on a regular basis, not annually. And so while we will accept and certify that you've met the requirement of the standard if you do your management review annually, we're not talking in this webinar about what are the minimum things you need to do to get certified. We're talking about getting real benefits from this new amazing edition of the standard. And so the constant cycle of improvement, plan, do, check, act, and practice, breaking things down into small parts and little tweaks to the business. So what small tweak can you make in your organisation this afternoon? And it could be something as simple as sharing this webinar and having someone listen to this crazy guy that's presenting this. Or it could be something that you guys are going through and saying, well, we can tweak that. We can do that small little change now, and then we can check back in and did it work? Yes, it did. And was there a slightly more positive experience in the customer spectrum? Yes, there was. Okay, excellent. Lock that in, move on to the next improvement. And so focusing on plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act. It's an amazing cycle, and it's checking in and seeing how your performance is running and then going from there. And then obviously page 9 in the forward part of the standard, where we're looking at risk-based thinking. So for those of you who have not experienced this before in the quality space, section 0.3.3 there, which is risk-based thinking. And there's just this statement, which I've already sort of covered, which is risk-based thinking is essential for achieving an effective quality management system. And the concept of risk-based thinking has been implicit in the previous editions of the international standard, and so obviously not specifically stated is what it's saying there, including, for example, the previous statements were carrying out preventative actions to eliminate potential non-conformities, analysing any non-conformities if they occur, and taking action to prevent reoccurrence that is appropriate for the effects. And so I'll cover it in another slide, but some of you may have heard me talk about defects in the past. So it's not project defects, it's defects in your company. So in terms of how you want to run and the recipe you want to follow to deliver the amazing service, where are your internal defects in your business, in your organisation? So that provides the framework for the risk-based approach, and the best bit of guidance in the standard is there on that page. So it's a focus point that I would encourage you to have a look at. The last focus point that I think is certainly my favourite part of the standard, and if you do nothing except one section of ISO 9001, so if you don't want to get certified and you don't want to, you just want to look at this, I feel that if you follow this last section, 9.1.3 of the standard, everything else starts to fall into place. So having the conversation about what we can do to upset our customers, having the conversation and starting to understand what you guys can do and implement for your customers to have an amazing experience, or your clients to have an amazing experience, then overlaying this last section, which is, and I'll just read it to you, the organisation shall analyse and evaluate appropriate data and information arising from monitoring and measurement, and the results of analysis shall be used to evaluate conformity of products and services. And I apologise that that's the ISO language, but it's all about, are we doing what we said we would do, the degree of customer satisfaction, the performance and effectiveness of the quality system, if planning has been effectively implemented, the effectiveness of actions taken to address risks and opportunities, and we talk about controls. So if you're a workplace health and safety professional as well as listening to this presentation, it's exactly the same. So what controls will you put in place for your risks? And then looking at, obviously, external providers and the need for improvements to the quality management system. So it's a really good thing. Now, that's not audits, by the way. Internal audits are the next section. This is just having ad hoc, in the first phase, ad hoc approach to analysis and evaluation of the business, but it's about having that check-in point, that cycle of improvement point, and that's really, really critical. So I'd ask you to focus on that. So I think with the 2015 edition of the standard, with all of the trends, with all of our clients, they're the two parts that we've seen be deficient up until obviously this point, and that's what we're encouraging people obviously to focus on. Because we see that as being sort of the root cause weakness of the rest of the management system not working effectively. And when I say effectively, I've seen quality management systems increase share price in organisations, both private companies and publicly listed. So that capital valuation growth. I've seen quality management systems increase revenue. So the quality management system is tied into winning a contract, and that contract doubles the revenue of an organisation. And there's a couple of case studies with some of our clients where they've had 600 and 700 and 1,000% growth after they've gained certification. So it does definitely map into bottom and top line benefits. So I've got two clauses of the standard to just cover with you, section 6 and then another clause in the second. And as a, I guess the opportunity to go through, and I haven't got time to go through all of the clauses of the standard. I am running out of time, but what I wanted to just quickly look at is planning. What does your business actually do, and what do your customers actually want? And often when I speak with business owners and business leaders in this space, when we're talking about these management systems, I get given a pitch where, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is what the future looks like, and all these sorts of things. And so the management, that gets communicated to staff, and so the management system is built around this future service that you're going to provide rather than the customer that you're actually invoicing this afternoon. And so, or the customer that you're serving, you know, if you're not for profit, and I appreciate there's some organisations out there in the community sector. So focusing on what your organisation does today, and what are the controls that you put in place to prevent things going wrong with your services today. And then thinking about your interested parties, and for people in the not-for-profit sector, so I give you some examples as well, your stakeholders, so your legislators, your regulators, the people involved, peripheral funding bodies, what is it that they actually want? And sometimes there's an implied requirement and not necessarily a specified requirement. So it's having a if you need to, opening a conversation in that space. Ultimately, in Section 6, we're talking about your quality management system being there to enhance effects of your business and then to reduce the undesired effects. And so that's where we start to double down on risk and risk-based approach to quality management systems. And so it is a big change to the standard in its focus, and definitely Section 6. While you don't need to radically change your quality management system, and let me just put that disclaimer out there, there's no need for a radical change to upgrade. You want to seek the true benefits of a quality management system and become more efficient in this management system space, then I'd encourage you to look closely at these sections and then change your systems accordingly. So to comply, not big changes to transition, but you've got an opportunity to really streamline your management system, which is really, really exciting. And lastly, this section of the standard is talking about communication. Communicating with your team on their customer requirements. So communicating with your team specifically customer requirements, and that might be items of a service level agreement or security or privacy protection or safety, all those sorts of things. So communicating with your team customers' requirements and specifically their role and specifically their responsibilities. And so, can I move this thing out of the way? Yes, I can. Look at that. So what we're talking about there is planned delegation versus assumed responsibilities. And if I use a soccer team or a football team on a pitch, and so the goalie might just assume the responsibility to go up and shoot goals against the other team, but they're not back on their post. And so we talk a lot here at Best Practice about staying on your post and not assuming a responsibility. And so that is when you look at the new version of ISO 9001 in Section 5 leadership, and we're not going to cover that course today, but that's starting to give you some guidance and strengthening the requirement there to be very specific about, okay, you know, Mary or Charlie, this is your post, these are your responsibilities, and this is your contribution to this amazing service that we're going to give our customer, and just be mindful that these are the things that could go wrong. So let's just be a bit cautious when we get to those parts of service delivery. Section 9 is obviously, we've sort of started to talk about it, but broadly speaking, the whole clause is about actual problems with products and services, so defects, actual problems with your processes in the context of performance evaluation. And let me just move this silly thing again. It's about, for those of you that watch our social media videos, and then lots of them come out, I'm a huge advocate for dashboards. And there is a statement, and I can't quote the author, but it's what gets watched gets managed. And so in that context of looking at, or measure it and it will improve, setting up a dashboard and having those metrics and statistics so that you can map and track customer satisfaction. You can look at the effectiveness of your risk controls. You can talk about and analyse opportunities for improvement. And then I think it's really important that using that dashboard to track performance on your actual business priorities. And too often we see organisations sort of say, well, these are our priorities, these are our projects, and then a disaster happens the next day and all that stuff gets dropped on the floor and you react to something. So have you guys, in enhancing your influence skills in your organisations, have you got the ability to look at strengthening your skills around staying the course on business priorities and well-planned business priorities that will ultimately prevent issues occurring anyway, instead of reacting. So proactively managing instead of reactively managing, and obviously the performance measurement dashboard. I just want to make one last point there on customer satisfaction. We see lots and lots of organisations approach customer satisfaction in different ways, and my belief and what I coach our team to look for is customer interaction and a customer conversation on an ongoing basis, not customer satisfaction forms and the filling out of forms. And I know as a customer myself, and you guys would appreciate this too, your customers as well of different organisations, the last thing you want to do is fill out a form. So if an organisation sends you a form and says, how'd we go? I know recently I had my car serviced and the mechanic sent me a text message, fill out this survey, we want to know how we did. Well, maybe the intent there is to prompt the negative complaint. So if it was a really bad experience, well, I'm going to unleash on them. I'm either going to unleash, be silent, or just not pay accurate attention to it. So we do recognise now, certainly here at Best Practice, that customer satisfaction forms are all but worthless. If you have a differing opinion and you'd like to challenge me, prove to me that it actually helps enhance your customer's experience. So it's definitely something where I believe that a more engaged customer, a more engaged process is going to give you a better opportunity to enhance the customer's experience rather than just than sending out a form. So I'm getting the wind up here from the team. Just looking at the time, and I'm appreciative of everybody's time. I just want to give you a quick overview there of some of the courses. If you've sort of sat through this presentation and you would like a more sort of step-by-step guided clause-by-clause approach to ISO 9001, I'd encourage you to have a look over there in the training portal, and that's just a screenshot of our training academy. Now's the time if you've got questions to start posting comments. So if you've joined us later in the webinar, have a look at there's a YouTube logo. If you're in our training portal, click that YouTube, click watch on YouTube, and then there's a place on the right-hand side of your screen, I think it is right-hand side of your screen, to post comments, and Shelley will start to read those out to me. But if you want that sort of detailed step-by-step guidance through ISO 9001 2015, there's a course there. It's a bundle deal that we've bundled up internal auditing and ISO 9001. There's obviously a couple of other courses there on things like transitioning, so just focusing on transitioning. We've got that bundle deal, which I'd encourage you to have a very good look at, and we've put a discount on it that's available till Sunday, so you've got a couple of days to opt in and have a look at that. And say again? Okay, and there is sorry, Shelley is putting a link to that training course offer right now in the comments for you. We're getting some questions coming in.
We've got one question.
Okay, just give me a couple of seconds and we'll cover that question. Okay, so there's the details on the bundle deal. If you want to grab a screenshot of that, there's tons of videos. I'll stop the sales pitch so I can ask some questions, but it's the revenue from these training courses that we use to fund these webinars and those sorts of things. So it's something to share with your team. The internal auditor course is enough for your team to be doing internal audits of your systems. It's 16 hours of videos. It follows the format of a 2-day course, but they can just do it as they need to. I'll just get you to read them out to me in a second. So let me just stop sharing my screen and I'll just say hello here. Okay, so we've got some questions.
First question from Chris Kilpatrick.
Chris Kilpatrick, thank you for the question.
It's, do we need to delete documents? Are they not compulsory? And do we need to replace them with an alternative?
So yes, Chris, you've got an opportunity with ISO 9001. No, you don't have to delete them, but I will challenge you to ask the question, why are they there? So as you get to revision status, if you like, of a document, you ask, why is it there? Is it there just for ISO 9001, or is it there for a specific customer's requirement? And that's the question. So yes, go ahead and delete it if it's just for ISO 9001, and then have a fresh look at the standard and what you would build to prove that you've got a system in place and prove that you've been through a process. And I'll give you an example, a training attendance register. So in your quality management system, you might conduct a team training, book a meeting room, or sit in your office environment or out on site and run team training and have a form to record that people have participated in training. Here at Best Practice, we've deleted that process. We run a private secret Facebook group that's got all of our staff enrolled So there were some staff members who were not on Facebook. We've given them a business-specific, with no personal information, Facebook profile. We've invited everybody to the group, so all the staff don't need to be friends on Facebook. They just participate in a group. And I post, and other managers in the business post, training information, and then we can see when we moderate that private Facebook group who's seen the post, and that becomes our record. And so if you want to keep a record, you just snap a screenshot on your phone, if you like, or whatever your device is, snap a screenshot, who's seen that information. Now, we've just rolled out a new financial management system, and that's the method. We use the closed private Facebook group, and we put 0 links, so the link 0 system, put the links into the group, and then people watch the videos from that place, and then we could track them. So that's a good example of being able to delete a training record. So now when we get audited, and people say, show us that people have participated in this training. Now, the great thing is, I don't need to assemble my whole team anymore for team training. I just post it, and I can honestly say that most people will watch it at about 6:30 at night when they're sitting on the couch at home. They don't do that training anymore in the business. And so they take those micro moments, and they take those opportunities to consume that content when they're a bit more relaxed. And so rather than having everybody stressed out on a site, they can just consume that training. And you can say, look, guys, can you take the time to look at this over the next 48 hours? And so the impact to your business from a financial perspective is minimised by deleting that. So we've deleted that. No training records, no training attendance register anymore. We keep a spreadsheet of who's seen it and that sort of stuff, and that's an administrative task, but we don't get people to sign stuff anymore. So none of our customers ask for it. Our regulator doesn't ask for it, and it was just for our system. Someone thought it was a good idea, so we've binned it. So that's a good example. Yes, you can delete some, but set up a filter. Why do we have this thing? And if it's for ISO 9001, go ahead and delete it and look at the standard and say, what does the standard now say? But if it's for a customer, obviously you want to evaluate that if it's contractual, then no. So there's a good filter. So anyone got any more questions? We've got a bunch of viewers there. Now's the time. I'm here for you, and I'm sure if you've got a question, someone else will be thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
We've had another part here from Chris.
Go ahead, Chris, again.
So as long as it is recorded electronically like in Sherm, then we can utilise our online tools as opposed to paper.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, absolutely, mate. That's fantastic. You want to get the value from those systems. You spend a bunch of money putting that system in place. Yeah, definitely. That's the stuff we want to see. And we'll go with you on that journey. So it's definitely something that, have the discussion with your assessor. If it's best practice assessor, if you're certified by us, have that discussion, say this is what we're doing now, so delete it, and then look at the intent of the standard. Yes, please, mate, I want to see you guys getting benefit out of those great systems that you implement. Don't duplicate it, so you don't want to have this paper-based system sitting here and this software system. If you do it all, try and prove that you do it all 100% on a software package, and that would be fantastic. That's what we really want to encourage. And we'll go with you on that journey. Like if it's not quite meeting the intent of the standard, then we'll go, okay, well, what are the little tweaks? And that's really about partnering and improvement. That's ultimately where we want to go with you.
We've had an anonymous question here.
Yep, anonymous, thank you.
Do you still need a quality manual?
Look, that can be a loaded question in terms of a quality manual. I will say my personal opinion is no. No, you don't need a quality manual, but you will need to argue the toss with a lot of old school, old dog trick people out there in the industry who want to see a quality manual. And I do still see intenders submit the contents page of your quality manual. So if I was your assessor, I'd be saying, show me your intranet site, show me show me your blog, show me your wiki system. But I'm still seeing in government tenders, even though they've been changed to address the ISO 9001-2015 edition of the standard, I'm still seeing it. So from a standards perspective, if you just wanted to purely implement ISO 9001-2015 and not get certified, but you want to do it for the benefits of improvement, no quality manual required, because it's about, if I use the concept of a cookbook, you're in a kitchen and there might be a shelf in your kitchen with the cookbooks on it. And so the old intent of the quality manual was to give direction and guidance to the team and the people who needed to use things. And it used to say direction to related documentation. And that was the intent of the quality manual. You you could sort of write a 1 or a 2-pager that said, you know, this is here and this is here and this is here. There's definitely still a requirement for quality policy. There's definitely still the requirement to sort of map your system, but if you did that in a web-based environment, in a, you know, maybe in an intranet site, then that would be your manual. But what we do see is we see a human behaviour to take the quality policy and make that page 2 after the title page of a manual, and a couple of other things that sort of describe the system so that you can hand it to a customer in a tender environment and say, this is our quality system. So I'm a very forward thinker, and I'd go with you and say delete it, but let's also appreciate that there's some customers and government departments out there, and also some not-for-profits and some industries that are going to take a little bit longer to come up to speed. And so in 24 months' time, there's going to be a lot more people out there in the industry that have got this opinion. And hopefully, if somebody is sort of arguing with you, and I know it's a loaded question, and I've seen who's registered on the list, so I think definitely be a little bit delicate with people out there. So it's not something you just want to rip out from other people. It's definitely you want to be sort of suggesting that change over time. So have a read of the standard and apply it in the context of your organisation is probably the best advice I'll give you there. Next question.
One more question we've got time for, and that is from Anonymous again. What's the most important thing we need to do to upgrade our certification from 2008 to 2015?
Okay, so the question is, what do we need to do to upgrade our management system from the 2008 edition of the standard to 2015? There's a couple of checkboxes. Conduct an internal audit yourself against the new standard. So getting a copy of the standard or downloading the checklist in our the Best Practice Training Academy and conducting an audit. I think it's important, and I had to do it. I had to read the standard so I could present this for you. Have a read of the standard. Run a bit of a gap analysis yourself, and then start to look at the transitioning. Now, the biggest piece I think that we need to do is do this risk assessment and change our way to risk-based thinking. So what are all the opportunities for upsetting our clients and customers, and starting to map that? And it might be that, you know, at the moment the accepted sort of norm is that there's a bit of a spreadsheet or a risk register. In a lot of organisations, we're already doing that for safety. So we're doing a risk register for safety, and then we may be branching out into JSAs or work method statements and those sorts of things as forms of control. So if you were to do that and develop a bit of a risk register and say, well, these are our potential ways we can upset our customer. This is what we actually did. This is how we're going to control it. We're going to train people, inform people, not do that thing. That's going to be that's probably the biggest part of the gap analysis. So on one hand, you're maybe building a register of risks, and then on the other hand, you're getting the opportunity to rip out a whole bunch of the rubbish documents. So I don't want to see people wasting time on version control and numbers and all that sort of crap with documents. So don't waste the first half of the page on a great guidance document in your business on, you know, this is version 15 of whatever it might be. And hope you're having a chuckle at that. I know some of you on the list. So, but I've always had that opinion, right? So here at Best Practice, we call it what it is. So the file name of the document is inserted as auto text in the document, and the file name is the name of the document, and we use a reverse date order. So we go year, month, day, and then the documents will sort in the server environment or a folder environment. Happy? Okay, guys. So I'm being given the call out to cut it off. I'll stay and monitor some of the comments. Again, I'd just like to thank everybody for participating today. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. Have a look at my personal LinkedIn profile. So search for me on LinkedIn and connect with me if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, because I do share articles and I participate. So when I get home from work at night, I'm often sitting there just reading my news feed, and that's the time to sort of interact. So if you want to sort of engage with me and ask me questions, that's a good place to do it. I'll comment on the posts. Our Facebook page is very much up and running, so we're doing lots of stuff on Facebook. So if you're a Facebook user, like and subscribe to our Facebook page, and then obviously our YouTube channel. So if you've got a Gmail account or a Google account, you use that to subscribe to YouTube, and then as we post videos, they'll come out. And our approach to YouTube is, I want to help you guys. So if you've got a request for a specific video or a question, and we can fit it into a 3-minute slot where we can hold people's attention, Alexi and I can shoot it really quickly, and you can put it into toolbox meetings or team communication, that sort of stuff. That's what that's for. And it's our way of giving to the community from a learning perspective. So have a look at some of those YouTube videos. They're all about learning and development and business improvement and educating your team. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I can hear your round of applause. Thank you very much. You might not see me out there, but you might, and you'll definitely see me next time on Best Practice TV. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.